Louisiana rougarou tried to climb in my rowboat. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I used to live in the swamps with the snakes and the gators. I was warned about the swamp boogers which you call Bigfoot, but I was not of Creole descent, and I never heard about the rougarou or the Loup Garou or the werewolf or the Dogman until after I had my first experience with him in the wetlands at the very southern edge of the United States. I grew up and old out in the bayou down in Louisiana, and I thought I would die there too. My grandson insisted I move in with his family in New Orleans about 1.5 or 2 years ago, so now I live the life of a normal person, same as the rest of you. But up to and including most of my 72nd year, I was part of a small family of folks living directly inside the swamp itself. In honesty, the last 7 or 8 years were spent alone after my wife passed on. My children had moved to the normal world, I guess, a decade or so earlier. I was and am disappointed that my stilt house is left to rot out there. I had hoped my progeny and their progeny would live in that place for 100 years or more. Now that I'm old, though, I forgive them all for leaving, and I understand why they did it better as I get older. I'm proud of them for doing what they wanted to do, although I did not appreciate their love of civilization until I slept on one of their memory foam mattresses. I do understand the siren call of modern technology and comfort, but if I could be young one more time, I know I'd head straight back out into that swamp, no matter how dangerous the lifestyle was. Not even if it turned out that I had an habituated Dogman or rougarou living nearby. As I mentioned earlier, I had never been told tales of the rougarou by my parents. As we were not Creole, we didn't speak very much French at all. After my first encounter with an upright moving wolf-like creature in the swamp, though, I made friends fast with some people who could fill me in on the lore of the creature. I learned, as most of you probably already know, that there are several different legends which propose to explain the rougarou or Loup Garou phenomenon. In most ways of telling it, though, the creature is a wizard or sorcerer, deliberately changing himself into a half-human and half-animal form of life. It's not supposed to be like any other predator in the wild, as it allegedly transforms back into a human being by the morning. Now, I don't know enough to say that those legends are not true. I don't know enough about the world to say that shape-shifting is impossible, so I'm not going to rule it out. When I had my first run-in with the beast, however, I felt that I was encountering a living animal, just a very rare one that hasn't been recognized by mainstream science yet. I did not get the vibe that this was a transformed being or anything of that nature, although I can say I understand why someone prone toward believing in superstition would perceive the critter as a supernatural monster. After all, it's not just rare to see, it appears to be the apex predator of the wetlands when you do see it. The idea that the creature literally on top of the food chain would be so rare as to not even be officially recognized as anything but a legend seems too surreal to be accepted. I mean, sure, you could believe in it as the plot of a movie, but not the plot of a news report, you know what I mean? Even some of the people I've spoken to who have seen Dogman, similar to what I saw, admitted to me that it still seems impossible to them, even after they saw it with their own 2 eyes. When the Dogman or Loup Garou puts in an appearance, it's usually quite memorable, and often somewhat traumatizing. Is the extra sense of fear we all feel in the presence of the Dogman an effect it projects out toward us? Or Is the act of viewing a mythical creature like a werewolf come to life in our reality just naturally terror-inducing? We know it shouldn't be real, and yet there it is in front of us. We know this could only happen in a dream, and yet here we are, fully awake. Of course, that's gonna be an experience that many people will label as paranormal or supernatural. I can't blame them. Sometimes I wake up in the dead of night, and I'm wondering if there might be something to that theory, more than just my personal paranoia. So I did see the Dogman more times than just this one time, but all of the other times after the first were sightings from a distance. I think it was the same Dogman, and I think he was checking on me to see where I was hunting that night, or if I was hunting at all. Looking back on it, I now think our first encounter was a battle over turf, and judging by his behavior after that, I'd say we must have battled to a draw or a tie. It was like after the first time he would let me see him off in the distance, and he wanted to occasionally eyeball me as well, just so we didn't forget about each other. I went out far less at night, trying to give him free rein of the entire area after sundown. When I would see him, it was always right at sundown. My wife once saw him just before sunrise in the morning, but my experiences all happened at sunset or just afterward. In all of the times the two of us saw the Dogman or rougarou, it was either standing or walking in an upright manner. When we saw it in the water, it would be in shallow water that it seemed to be walking in. I even got the feeling that the creature developed an upright way of walking in the water before it started doing the same thing on land. I think it would be an easier way for a canine to learn to walk bipedally if it were walking in a buoyant liquid like swamp water tends to usually be. I don't think I ever saw the beasts swim, but I'm sure they could at least manage their own version of a doggy paddle. In the days before this next story changed everything, I had a number of possible reasons I might be out in my rowboat at night in the swamp. I might be checking traps, setting traps, or even heading out of the swamp to get supplies, or go take in a show maybe. I don't really even remember what I was doing that night, but I was out in the swamp in that little boat, daydreaming, as I paddled along quietly through the murky water. I don't even remember hearing the sound of the Dogman walking up through that water, and I was more than a little surprised when I suddenly saw a very tall, hairy, upright mammalian sort of non-human air-breathing predator emerge from the shadows and simply stride over toward the rowboat. If the water was at the depth I thought it was, then that creature must have been 8 or 9 feet tall. Now I get bear with mange from people a lot. They say it was dark and I saw a bear with mange. The disease thins the bears out, and they look more canine in appearance. They can get desperate for food since hunting becomes harder since they're ill. Well, the creature that waded over to my rowboat was not sick, and it was not begging me for scraps because it was not too weak to hunt. This creature had muscles on top of his muscles, and fangs as long as my fingers. The speed with which it moved through the thick swamp water demonstrated its great strength. I even think that the swamp water was instrumental in helping the creature evolve to become upright walking. This was an animal perfectly suited for its environment. It was not sick, and it was not weak. It seemed to want my rowboat. I wasn't sure if he wanted to pull me out of it and take it away, or if he wanted to climb in with me and paddle away. But I could tell that this somewhat manic, upright wading Louisiana rougarou was about to try to climb into my rowboat. My first reaction was to use the oar closest to the beast man to strike out at him before he could do any damage to me. This was partially successful until the Dogman got annoyed at the oar and he tried to grab it away from me. At this point, I reached for my weapon, and whatever else you want to say about that rougarou, it was already familiar with humans and their technology. When he saw me reaching for my protection, he literally dropped down into the water as though the floor had been pulled out from underneath him. I mean, that Dogman dropped straight down, and I could not see him below the surface at all. I was frozen for a short while, not knowing if the Loup Garou might be hiding directly underneath my boat ready to capsize me, or if he might have already swam away into the darkening night. I heard the sounds of crickets and night creatures coming back, and I hadn't even realized that it had gone quiet. I reasoned that the Dogman must have moved on for the night sounds to have returned, so I took my opportunity to paddle myself on home. Later that night, the wife and I decided that it was too dangerous to go out at night in the swamps anymore. We were both middle-aged by then and not as quick as we had once been. Plus, the Dogman seemed to me to be too far out of our league for us to want to do anything else to bother it. We both felt it must have only moved into the area recently, but it would probably be there for a long time to come. In the end, that Dogman outlasted me. One of these days, maybe even this coming spring or autumn, I hope we make a family adventure and travel out to see if my old stilt house is still standing and if anyone else has moved into it. You know, it is possible that dangerous people have moved in, but I was pretty dangerous myself in my day, so it's not my place to be judgmental. And after all, even though I admit I've grown into an old man, I'm still the guy who survived the time that Louisiana rougarou tried to climb into my rowboat. No matter our struggles and how hard we fought, we couldn't have done this without Lost in Thought. Yes, during these unprecedented times, the act of keeping a YouTube channel online can become more and more challenging. That's why we share cool perks with the badass executive producers who help make it possible for us to keep making these shows. Here's international spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to explain how you too can help keep us going while getting cool stuff in return. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com, and that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.